and time again. Living is a constant and continuous choosing. Choosing between right and wrong, choosing between good and evil, choosing between light and darkness. Before God even said, let there be physical light, he declared the coming of the light of salvation. As he knew each and every one of us was going to inevitably make a wrong choice regarding good and evil, as we read in Romans 3:23. The clarity of that choice is first seen in Genesis chapter 2, verses 9 and 16, and Genesis chapter 3, verses 5 and 22, which I'm going to read consecutively. Out of the ground the Lord caused to grow every tree that is pleasing to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of good and evil. The Lord commanded the man, saying, from any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you do, you will surely die. For God knows that in the day that you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Then God said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. So there's not one of you out there that cannot deny that you've known both good and evil. Yes, because of sin, the first of our kind came to know both good and evil. And Satan became the champion of evil and the ruler of darkness. Just as with Adam and Eve, Satan never ceases to entice each of us, just as he did Jesus Christ in the wilderness, by the desires of the flesh, the desires of our eyes, and the pride of life. We see in 1 John 2:16. Our God's pre-creation knowledge knew that there would be both good and evil, light and dark continuously upon this earth, and that all men would sin and fall short of his glory. But he coupled it with a pre-creation plan for mankind's salvation from those sins, as we can read in John 17:24, Ephesians 1:4, and 1 Peter 4:20. What we've got to grasp is there are no shades of gray in God's sight. There is good, there is evil. There is right, there is wrong, there is light, there is darkness. There is no middle ground. The closest passage we could come to the condition of those who think they can walk between light and darkness is in Revelation 3:15 that Tyler mentioned this morning, when Jesus said, I know your deeds. You are neither cold or hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold or hot, I will spit you out of my mouth. Not encouraging words for those assembling with the saints, hoping there are indeed degrees of reward in heaven, and that maybe, just maybe, by the hair of their chinny chin chin, they may make it. But there is no middle ground. The road of spiritual choices has only right and wrong. There are 0 passages approving spiritual shades of gray. We choose good or evil, right or wrong, light or darkness. Job speaks of spiritual darkness in chapter 24, verses 13 through 16. There are those who rebel against the light. They do not want to know its ways nor abide in its paths. The murderer rises at dawn, he kills the poor and the needy, and at night he is a thief. The eye of the adulterer waits for the twilight, saying, no eye will see me, and he disguises his face. In the dark they break into houses. They shut themselves up by day. They do not know the light. Isaiah 5:20, woe to those who call good evil and evil good, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness. We see that more and more around us every day, even in our government. Zephaniah 1:12, it will come about that when I am searching with lamps, I will punish the men who are stagnant in spirit, who say in their hearts, the Lord will do me no good or evil. Alas, you who are looking for the day of the Lord, for what purpose will that day be to you? It will be darkness, not light. Jesus put it this way in Matthew 6:23. If your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Then watch out that the light in you is not darkness. He again said in Matthew 13:37 through 38, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, and the field is the world. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the tares are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed is the devil. Luke 6:45, the good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth what is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth what is evil. For his mouth speaks from that which fills his heart. John 3:19 and 20. The light has come into the world, and man loved the darkness more than the light, for their deeds were evil. For anyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light for fear his deeds will be exposed. John 5:29. An hour is coming when all who are in the tombs will hear his voice and will come forth. Those who did the good deeds to the resurrection of life, and those who committed the evil deeds to the resurrection of damnation. Romans 6:19. I want you to be wise in what is good and innocent in what is evil. Romans 1:29. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Amos 5:15. Hate evil, love good. Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. 3 John 1:11. Beloved, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. The one who does good is of God, and the one who does evil has not seen God. 1 Peter 3:10 through 12, or Psalms 34:12 through 16. The one who desires life, to love and to see good days, he must turn away from evil and do good. For the eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and his ears attend to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Joshua told the Israelites in chapter 24:15 that if they thought it evil to serve Jehovah God, then they must choose from the gods of the lands around them. We have to make that same choice. Jesus made it so simply clear in Matthew 6:24. No man can serve two masters. He will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Each of us has chosen a master. It may be a different master from time to time throughout our lives, but every day that we live, we make choices as to who is our master. There is no middle ground. There is no place for a stagnant spirit, no place for lukewarm hearts, no shades of gray. There's only one right choice, And we must mirror the words of Joshua in that same verse of chapter 24:15, and declare before God and man, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
So I want to first, I guess, thank Brother Dale and Brother Eric. We had conversations about, they each asked me what I was going to speak on, and they, I guess, tailored what they were going to do to what I said I wanted to speak about. So we actually didn't plan this, believe it or not, but it all goes together quite well. So a few weeks ago, I heard a sermon where the preacher was referencing Jesus being the light, and he used a study principle called the law of first mention. And without getting too technical, it's basically a study principle where if you're not sure about a concept or an idea, you try to find the first place that it's mentioned in the Bible to help give you some context to explain what it means. Well, so he goes to Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. And I think the preacher was trying to make the point that Jesus was the light even in the beginning. Right, before there was sun and moon and stars, Jesus was always there with the Father, and that he was the light. And so, while I haven't studied that in depth, it started making me think about just how much light is mentioned in the Bible. And so I looked it up, and depending on which version you look at, the word light is mentioned between 230 and 280 times in the Bible. And so when I found this, I thought, okay, a word that's mentioned that many times in a single book, it bears paying some attention to. And so John 8, verse 12 says, "I am the light of the world." This is Jesus speaking. "Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." John 12:46 says, "I have come into the world as light, so whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness." All right, so we're pretty clear on Jesus is the light of the world, right? And we know he is our example. But then when he's speaking on the Mount in Matthew 5, verses 14 through 16, he says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." So, when I'm reading these, I'm thinking, the first question that comes to my mind is, okay, how can I be the light of the world? Jesus says he is the light of the world, but then he tells us that we are to be the light of the world and to let our light shine before men. So I've got a couple of just simple things tonight to kind of tell us from my perspective how we can shine our light to the world. And kind of the undertone of these things is that while they're very simple and kind of common sense, the more I age, the more I understand that maybe common sense isn't so common anymore. And but these things, while they're simple, we don't see them often. So the first way that we can be the light of the world is to simply be positive. Just having a positive disposition, whether we're in school or whether we whether we're young and in school or whether we have jobs, we're constantly around people who are primarily negative, it seems. Right? One of the joys of coming to worship every Sunday and meeting for Bible classes on Wednesday night is that we get to be around people who are like-minded and who do, generally speaking, have positive outlooks, because we're inundated day after day with negativity and with people just trying to drag you down into their misery. And so it's up to us to rise above that and to be positive in the face of all of that negativity. And this is not easy to do, right? Negativity, in my opinion, breeds negativity. And they say misery loves company. And if you're not careful, whether you're sitting in a teacher's lounge or whether you're standing at the water cooler or whatever your interactions, right? If you allow yourself, you will be sucked into that vortex of negativity, and you will not be able to find your way out of it easily. L.F. Young, I don't know who that is, but they had a good quote that I'd like to read. It says, "Don't hang with negative people. They will pull you down with them. Instead, invite them into your light, and together you will both shine strong." Now, Philippians 2, verses 14 and 15 says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world." Do all things without grumbling or disputing. Philippians 4:8. My wife calls this the Christian litmus test. It says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." Right? I didn't hear complaining in that list. I didn't hear being negative. I didn't hear putting down others to build yourself up. Right? Those things are not pure. Those things are not true. Those things are not worthy of praise. All right? So let's think about the things that are worthy of praise. Ephesians 4:9 says, "Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." All right? We've all had a parent or a grandparent tell us, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's what we're seeing here in Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths. If you're going to speak, let it give grace to those who hear. Justine Edwards says, "You can overcome whatever is going on around you if you believe in the light that lives within you." All right, number 2. The way that we can shine our light to this world is to be kind and forgiving to others, especially those that are not so kind or forgiving to us. All right, again, we're talking about things that are simple but maybe uncommon. Yehuda Berg quoted, "Love is a weapon of light, and it has the power to eradicate all forms of darkness. That is the key. When we offer love even to our enemies, we destroy their darkness and hatred." All right, Ephesians 4:31 and 32. It's a very popular verse. We probably all know it pretty much by heart. "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." All right, this is our charge. This is what we've been commanded to do. Be kind to one another. 1 Peter 3:9 says, "Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless, for to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing." I really like Luke 6:33. "And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same." Right? It's easy to be nice to people that are nice to you. It's easy to love people who love you. It's easy to forgive people who are sweet and tender, and you know they just made a mistake and it probably won't happen again. It's very difficult, on the contrary, to be nice to someone who you know would just as soon spit in your face as talk to you. So this is something that is very challenging. Matthew 5:44 says, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Okay, again, Jesus giving us a very challenging command there. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, "See the light in others and then treat them as if that is all you see." I think those are wise words. Okay, my last point of how we can let our light shine. And that is simply be selfless. And while, again, that's a simple idea, this is something that's very, very challenging. We are creatures. We are creatures who do what we can to survive in most situations, and a lot of times that doesn't include considering the needs of others around us or the feelings of others around us. I tell people that I talk to all the time that I kind of have the opinion that every evil in the world, no matter what it is, it all boils down to selfishness. There's always someone who's trying to get what they feel is right for them at whatever cost, whether that be stomping on a family member or killing a perceived enemy or whatever the evil is in this world. I think you can boil it all down to being selfish. Somebody on some level felt like they needed to do what was right for them. James 3:16 kind of backs me up there with that opinion. It says, "For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice." And so wherever we see selfishness, we're going to see all manner of evil. And I found a couple of verses that kind of, to me, describe the world that we live in currently. Philippians 2:21 says, For they all seek their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ." 2 Timothy 3, verses 2 through 4 reads, "For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God." That's quite a list. That list actually reminds me of Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. Right, we see there the works of the flesh that are listed before the fruits of the Spirit. And we see all of the things that are that come to us naturally that are things that we need to try to avoid. 1 Corinthians 10:24 says, "Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor." Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves." Right, and that is the crux of this point. We need to consider others more significant than ourselves. And probably what the world would find ironic is that, at least for me, I find that when I consider others more significant than myself, that I feel better as a result. When I do something good for someone, even if it meant I had to say no to myself, then ultimately I get just as much of a reward, spiritually speaking. Jesus is our example in all of these areas. right? We talked about three simple things, three simple ways to shine our light to this world: being positive, being kind and forgiving, and putting others above ourselves. Hebrews 4:15 says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin." All right, this is why Jesus is the light of the world, and this is why we should walk in his footsteps. He understands our weaknesses. He's had to endure them. He was tempted every way as we, yet without sin. And then the ultimate selfless act. John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, than someone laid down his life for his friends." It cannot be more selfless than giving your life for another, when clearly we're the ones who deserve death, not Jesus. But he paid that price for us. And I want to end with this quote from Plato. He said, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." So tonight, if you are a Christian and perhaps you have been living in darkness on some level, on any level, and you want to repent of that, tonight you will have an opportunity. Don't be afraid to come back into the light. Or if you are here tonight and you're not a Christian and you would like to come into the light and walk in the light as he is in the light so that the blood of his Son covers us, then I ask that you can do that right now as we stand and sing.